Hello again. Okay, hopefully it will work now because a Facebook Live can be quite tricky sometimes. So we've changed some things. Okay, please hold on. Uh, I don't know why it can be so different and so. Uh, okay, I will ask. So the guest speaker today is Kateryna Protsenko. Kate, if you can hear me, please comment because I cannot bring you on camera for some reason. So if you're listening to me now, please comment so I can see you in the comments, and that in that way I will be able to add you also on camera. Okay, Kate is saying that for some reason she cannot, there's no function to join. And okay, I can see Kate. Okay, I should add her right now. Okay, some commented. Okay, hello, Kate.
Hello.
I'm so happy that it worked out this time because you know that Facebook it can be so tricky.
It
Last
did.
time I don't know why, but for some reason I did everything the same and it just didn't work out. It can be really frustrating. So I'm so happy that it worked out, and I'm so
Yeah.
happy to see you. So thank you so much for joining this live chat. We've been planning this for a very long time, and I really appreciate you and also the people who responded to this event.
Sorry, wait. I think I
Yeah.
have double sound for some reason. So
Okay,
just
maybe
let me
you have
check.
your computer open and your phone at the same time, so you might want to close your computer.
It's not. Well, let's try again. I don't think.
Maybe let's try not to disconnect because like Facebook can be tricky. I will not if I'm not able to add you again, it will be very frustrating. Let's not disconnect.
I am not sure.
Okay. Is it still coming from like you said, like
Yeah,
the
it's coming from my phone. It's double sound from my phone for some reason.
Oh, okay, maybe okay. Hopefully it will. Maybe
Yeah.
sometimes you know, like still like it's tuning on, and maybe in the beginning it can be this way, but
No.
maybe we'll adjust later. No. Okay. Okay, I'm not so good with tech things. I'm not a tech savvy person. I don't know what to do. Like I've never had this issue myself. Another issue that I had
Mm.
last time, like, it was so frustrating. So I couldn't do this on Facebook for some reason. So I had to switch it on Zoom like so quickly. So
Yeah. The thing is that I cannot hear your questions, so that's the point. Because I've done that with Zoom in the past, but never did it through Facebook straight. See, I can hear our past um, utterances. Interesting. Okay. Stay there. I'll try and reconnect if that's okay. All right.
okay, let's
If you
try.
don't mind. Thank you.
Let's try. Okay, in the meantime, I can see a few people. Someone is saying that this person, I don't know how to pronounce this name, is joining from Angola. I can see a person who I know, LJ. Hello, LJ. LJ is watching us from Myanmar. It's nice to see you also. I can see Veronica. Okay, Veronica. I guess Veronica is from Europe. From South Korea. Wow, that's so awesome from South Korea. Uh, okay. Sounds okay. Okay, I can see also some people from Ukraine. So in the meantime, okay, just a second. Okay, hopefully everything will work.
Hello?
Hello again.
Okay, now it's good.
Oh,
Perfect.
okay, okay. Thank God, thank God. I'm so happy because
Yes,
everything
absolutely. Me too.
something always happens, and yes, okay, I'm so
Yeah,
happy, really happy. So,
that's true.
uh,
Me too. Okay,
yeah.
so
So
here
thank
we
you.
are. Yeah.
Yeah, yes. Thank you so much that you've agreed to do this with me, and I'm so excited about it. And the topic that we've chosen, I think it's a very relevant topic nowadays, especially that so many like educators and so many learners had to switch online.
Yeah,
So,
agree.
yeah, maybe a little bit of introduction. So my name is Lana. I'm a teacher of English and a teacher trainer, and Kate is a very special person who, like, I've been wanting to do this with her for such a long time. So,
Thank you.
yeah, our topic for today is feedback. We will be talking about feedback that empowers, and the reason why we chose this topic is actually because last year Macmillan was presenting a series of different webinars, and Kate was one of them, was one of the presenters. And this was her topic that she did for Macmillan. And I remember when I watched it, Kate, like I was so impressed. I was really, really impressed. And the way you presented it, it was like, wow, it was really empowering. And I shared it with so many people. And today also, like we will be discussing maybe some similar questions, some different questions,
Mm-hmm.
and those of people who responded who cannot watch us now, they will be able to watch us also recorded, like to watch a replay. And yes, so maybe you can introduce yourself also.
Yes,
It's over
absolutely.
to you.
Well, before we do that, I have to say, I'd like to say that actually feedback is one of my most favorite topics, and I still remember that webinar because it's probably one of my most favorite webinars as well. And I've done a couple of presentations at IETFL Global and IETFL Ukraine about feedback, and also ran that webinar. So, and the thing is, like, we have to do it in our everyday teaching so much that, you know, literally we cannot live without it. So yes, to introduce myself, well, I've been a teacher and an ELT manager and a teacher trainer for 14, yes, 14 years now. And I've worked for various places in Ukraine and abroad. And at the moment, I'm freelance, doing a lot of teacher training in different parts of the world, mostly online though. So I'd appreciate a chance to travel, but at the moment, it's all online. Yeah, and thank you very much for inviting me to do this. I'm really happy to go online to speak to you and speak to the other people about my most favorite topic. So let's get started. I have my cup of coffee here, if you don't mind. So I'll be enjoying it while you are speaking, taking a little break. Great.
Yes, okay. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Kate. Also, something I was going to mention that after this chat, I'm going to post also this link from Macmillan. Like, if you don't mind, people can also
Absolutely.
watch the presentation because, like, really, I can say to everyone watching us right now, it is worth watching. I actually rewatched it again today, and each time, like, doesn't matter how many times I watch, it's just like, wow, like you did it, like you did an amazing job, really.
Oh, cool. Thank you
Inspired.
very much. I will also, I was just thinking about it. I will be posting some of the links after we finish with this webinar, because I'm sure I will be referring to some, you know, sources where you could find some useful information. So yeah.
Yeah, we can also do this, yes.
Okay.
So as we go along, just so all the people watching us, if you have any questions or comments or anything, please ask, please comment in the chat box below, and we will be happy to address all of them. And I can see someone is saying that Kate is the best of the best. I absolutely agree.
Thank you very much. I hope it's one of my past students. Thank you. So
Okay.
let's jump to our topic.
Yes. Let's
Mhm.
yeah, let's finally get started. So
Cool.
yes, our topic is feedback. So maybe like yes, we announced some questions that we will
Hmm.
be bringing up. Maybe first thing that we can start off with is feedback. How would you, so like you've been working as an English teacher and teacher training, sorry, teacher trainer, like in so many countries and in so many settings. How would you define feedback yourself?
Well, in a broad sense, this is the information you get about your performance or comments you get on your performance. Whether that's the context of learning, so students get some feedback or some information on how they have done, or in real life, actually, like when we are speaking to our friends, colleagues, parents, we also get some information on, what's happening, what we've just said, and that's also feedback. So.
Yeah. So feedback can be like intentional or unintentional sometimes, right?
Absolutely.
Like I
Yes.
remember this webinar, like you mentioned that it's around us, and like it's something that I was like, wow, like it's really true what you said. Like it's so simple, but I had never realized it before myself that it doesn't have to be always, like intentional, right? Like whether it's verbal or written feedback.
Yeah. And in most cases, it is unintentional because we can hardly control our facial expressions, our gestures, our body language. And that's where most of the information comes from. And the funny thing is that, our brain perceives it and analyzes it, whether we want it or not, as well. So, sometimes we get more information than we think and than we actually want.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kate. Yeah, thank
Mm,
you. So maybe we can get started with talking and discussing the
sure.
first question about the importance of feedback. So the first question, it was about like feedback for both learners and educators.
Hmm.
Maybe first we can start with learners, right? And also,
Yeah.
so you teach, I know that you train teachers and you also teach learners, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
So,
So the
yeah,
importance of feedback.
yeah.
Okay.
So to say about the importance also, and maybe like later we can compare if feedback can be different for learners and also for educators, if it
Hmm.
should be given the same or different ways. Yeah, and also the importance for both.
Okay. All right. So, well, I'd like to start with referring to a fantastic book here. So there is a person, Matthew Syed, who, well, he's not the only one who spoke about it, but it's one of the most recent books I've read about, well, feedback in a way. So there has been some research which shows that, in order to become an expert in an area or doing something, we need to, practice doing this thing, whether it's playing tennis, playing chess, teaching, composing music, whatever it is. And how do we get there? So they've discovered that it takes 10,000 hours of practice in order to become an expert. However, they went further and they discovered that, if we simply practice for 10,000 hours without knowing how we have done, it doesn't make us experts. So, if I want to learn to play tennis, I can go and play tennis with a friend or, play squash. But if I don't get any feedback from somebody who's more experienced and knows more, I won't become an expert. So is feedback important? Yes, absolutely. Learning hardly ever happens. Well, it does happen without feedback, but that's a different kind of learning. And in terms of the importance of feedback for the learners and for the teachers, I believe it's equally important because as teachers, when we give feedback, it means that we are um, more mindful of what the student is doing because we are paying attention to that, and therefore we can notice a lot more things. And also, once we've told our learners, this is good, and for example, you need to work on the pronunciation, on connected speech a little bit more, here is how you do it, we can expect our learners to perform better, to practice and perform better, because it's incredibly unfair to notice that somebody is mispronouncing something or is not using connected speech, and expect them to start doing that without teaching them how to do it. And the other thing which I always tell my trainees on the CELTA courses is, if you've given your students a task, whether it's, talk to your partner about your favorite activities for your free time, or it's a reading task, if you never ask them what they have spoken about, and if you never give feedback on their performance, then, it's unfair. They've done the task. They need to know the results. They need to know how they did. And again, that's when learning happens. So that's how important it is. And I think you also asked me about the way feedback should be given. And if you watch my Macmillan webinar, I used my favorite picture there, which says, we navigate our lives using words. And if we can change the words, we can change and improve lives. And that's incredibly relevant to the feedback, because the way we give feedback actually defines how the people, well, in a way, it defines how the people perceive it, whether they accept it or not. And we can sometimes ruin other people's lives with our feedback. So, yeah. I don't know if you want an example of that, because that's a tricky topic.
Yeah, we can continue with examples. Just something that I remember, you brought up this part about your favorite quote of yours, and I remember that after the quote, you said it so nicely, like it was really touching. I really was so moved, and I cannot say it as nicely as you said, but you said that the main point was that like we should be so careful, right, with the choice of our words, right? Because like with maybe one word we can hurt someone, right? And with one word we can also uplift someone and motivate someone so much. So, and you just put it so nicely. I remember I cannot put it that so nicely. So yeah, I was really moved with this.
That's absolutely true, and that's true for both teaching and communication in everyday life, because different people take in the information in different ways, and the importance they give to the information is also could differ depending on the subject, the topic, the person who says that, and a lot of other things. But generally, like when we speak about feedback and giving the information, we can formulate that in two ways. That could be face threatening and non-face threatening, where face threatening is like when you're being direct, or saying something directly, and that feels threatening. Whereas when we say things in a direct way, but formulated in positive words, that becomes less face threatening. I'm just trying to think of an example here, just an example sentence. So imagine we've just had a writing lesson and our students have handed in essays, and a nice essay, but there are mistakes. So we can hand it back and say, this is a very good piece of work, but you have a lot of mistakes and you need to work on that. And that kind of is already not very nice. Whereas if you hand it back and if we say, oh, it's a very good piece of work, even though there are some mistakes, the even though changes the focus. And that's the reality of our words. And that's basically what I mean with that quote.
Yeah, yeah, this is such a
Mm.
nice example. Yeah, thank you for sharing this. I think
Mm.
like in this example, it shows like what we start with, right? It's like we how we structure it. I guess like yes, I believe that it's important. So like I would like to know about my mistakes. If, for example, if I hand in my essay to you and
Yeah,
it contains a lot of mistakes, like I would like to learn about these mistakes. But
sure.
important, like you said, how we shape it, right? How we structure it, what we start
Yes.
with, we how we, like we deliver the like the negative part, what
Mm-hmm.
to improve, what to work on, and also how we wrap it up also, right? This
Mm-hmm.
like approach, as people call it.
Mm-hmm.
And just a few words, like if it's okay, like I can add about feedback also, like
Absolutely.
for yeah, for myself, for me, like feedback is really, really important. And like I find it very demotivating and frustrating when I don't get any feedback from, for example, my manager or my employer, right? Especially like if I do something right, how do I know if I'm doing the right thing, right? Or how do I know that I like what things I can improve and how I can be better in teaching or whatever area I work in? And
Mm-hmm.
also teachers, like I mentioned it before also, that being a teacher, it's not just, I believe, like in my personal opinion, that it's not just a regular mechanical job that we just teach, we get paid for this and like, and we forget about it, right? I believe that teaching or training, like it's a service job and it always sticks with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And especially like it's like such in this world that is like so full of like this aggressive competition. So with teaching, I believe like for me, like this is so important, right? The feedback, because like I said, it's not something mechanical. Like I want to be better, I want to change, I want to know about my mistakes, right? So like in this sense, like feedback is very important for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I'm just changing the position of my phone. I guess feedback is very important for everyone. That's how we understand where we are in terms of communication, in terms of our learning, and in terms of, you know, everything we do. And you mentioned the sandwich feedback a little earlier, which is a very common approach, and um, you know, a lot of people say and advocate that the sandwich feedback approach. However, you know, it's become so popular that a lot of people already know about it. And when you're giving feedback, you know, the person might be thinking that okay, you've given me the positive part, so where is my negative part? So I believe that all depends on the context and on the situation, of course. But in a lot of cases, when we're talking to experts in particular, and you know, people who are more aware of that, it might be a good idea to negotiate how we do feedback before we actually start, because you know, we're all limited in time, and of course, we want to be as productive as possible. So if we start with, you know, so what kind of feedback are you expecting from me? And what are you particularly interested in? Then, you know, we can tailor our feedback to the people's needs, actually. And the other thing is, because so many people are aware of the sandwich feedback, you know, they are not listening actively when we're giving the first positive part, and it kind of devalues that bit. So, you know, I like to negotiate the way we do feedback, if possible.
Mhm. I see. You mean to negotiate with the person
Yes,
who we give the feedback to, right? So
yes, yes.
they can understand what we are talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Well, by negotiating, I mean sometimes we can say that, you know, I understand that you're expecting me to correct your mistakes, but there were quite a lot of good things in your performance, so let's start from that. By by saying this, we're making the people more aware of what we are doing, why we're doing, and actually the value of positive things.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Like you mentioned, because some people are maybe they don't expect you to hear certain
True.
things, or they want to hear like other like different things from what you're going to be talking
Yes,
about. So
yes.
that actually brings us to our next question about kinds of feedback and how often it should be given. So if we talk about teaching and learning, this environment. So maybe you can talk a little bit kinds of feedback also, and how often it should be given. For example, when we talk about learners and when we talk about educators, is it different or the same also?
Okay, so if we want to speak about the kinds of feedback, all will depend on, the criterion we take. So like feedback can be verbal or non-verbal, verbal being, you did well, and the non-verbal feedback is actually us smiling, because if we say you did well with, a poker face, or, without smiles or anything, then it kind of, it doesn't correspond to what we're saying. And in a lot of cases, we're simply reading a student's essay and we haven't said anything, but we're just smiling, and they're already getting this nonverbal feedback that, okay, everything is fine. Feedback can differ based on, we've already mentioned that. So intentional can be intentional and unintentional. Yeah. So sometimes we're not planning to do that, but we give feedback by raising an eyebrow, smiling, and that kind of stuff. Feedback can differ depending on what we're giving feedback on. Well, in terms of language, could be, content, language, meaning, form, that kind of thing. Depends on what we're focusing on. In terms of the time, it can be immediate or it can be delayed, of course. Immediate being, we hear something and we correct it straight away, and delayed being, we're scribbling something, making notes, and then when the student stops speaking, we actually tell them how they performed. So yeah, lots of different types of feedback, and there is no one universal system which would say, okay, feedback can be this and that and this and that. So, it's just important to think about what we are doing and why we are doing it.
I see. Yeah, it's interesting what you said. Yes, about also your facial expression, about your body language, your smile or your eye contact. Because for example, if like I just was thinking about myself, and if I get some like let's say like someone is giving me like if I expect that this person is going to give me some maybe negative, but at the same time this person is smiling and like is very like smiling too much and totally. So what I mean is that like the feedback and the body language, the facial expressions, they are not like they don't correspond each other. So in that case, maybe I would feel that something is wrong about it. Maybe this person like is not too open about it to me, right? Or maybe is not really sincere with me, right? Or so this is like that it sounds to me.
Yeah, okay. I can definitely see how it works if you are expecting some positive feedback, but then, the way the person is doing that doesn't give you any positive impressions. So like, the smiles, the I don't know, the gestures, this, and all the other things. So with negative feedback, you're right when you say that it gives you a false impression, because particularly like on Celta and Delta courses, if we give negative feedback with a very, very positive manner, that's definitely non-threatening, and can be a lot more encouraging. However, it can also make the person think that the problems aren't crucial, and it doesn't really matter. So there has to be some balance. I personally think that feedback should be given with positive body language and in a positive atmosphere, but we have to make it clear that the essence of our feedback, the content of our feedback really matters.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, just like to rephrase, like maybe I could not deliver very clearly what I was going to say. For example, like I have another example. So someone is saying like very good things to me, right? Like really good things. But the way they are saying this, like don't look happy about it. They say, for
Oh,
example,
okay.
like, oh, like you've done a really great job. It was awesome. It was amazing, right? With this
Okay.
kind
Yeah. 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 No,
then
absolutely.
something is not right about it, right?
No,
Probably I
that's
didn't.
really demotivating. It kind of gives you the impression that, you did well, but the people weren't expecting you to do well. So, yeah, there might be something more there, and yeah, I'm sure I would want to clarify what the issue is. I saw a question pop up on my phone from
Yeah,
Ludmila.
yeah,
She was asking about feeding forward, which is a very, very interesting question because we're all talking about feeding back, but feeding forward. So is it okay if I say a couple of words about that here?
of course.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So feeding forward is basically, um, if I'm doing that to myself, I'm basically asking myself the question of, so where am I going? What do I want to achieve? Like I want to write an essay, yeah, and how do I get there? So I need the structure and everything, and what's next after I've written this essay? Yeah, what happens next? So this is like the three-stage framework, and in a lot of cases, I would say that we can call it the actual teaching. Um, the the reason I would call it feeding forward is like teaching. This is the kind of teaching which is based on the students' immediate needs or what we notice they need. But this is not something that stems from what they've just said, the mistake they've just made. But this is from them saying, "I need this and that," and that's when we start thinking about how to help them get there. So uh, yeah, just another important uh, part of feedback. If we go back to the writing, which I mentioned earlier, if we think about, well, process writing or any kind of writing, the students have written an essay, they've submitted a draft, yeah, so not a full essay but a draft, and there's something missing, obviously, like rich vocabulary is missing, or I don't know, some grammar is missing. It's not something we've taught yet, but it's something we notice in the students' performance, and then it becomes feeding forward because we know that they definitely need it in order to become proficient at writing essays. And we feed forward, so we give them whatever they need to get where they want to be. Yeah, I guess I'm done with that part.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Yes, I absolutely would agree with you, Kate, on this, what you said, that especially like when we give feedback, right? Like we want our students to improve. So feedback,
Mm-hmm.
it's about past, right? Like back is about the past. It's like what they've done right or wrong.
Yes.
And especially when we focus on these parts that they've done wrong, like what is the plan? What is the strategy for the future? Not to repeat again.
Yeah.
For example, if it's like fossilized errors, remember as you spoke in this webinar also, or like any
Mm-hmm.
kind of things, just to avoid repeating them in the future, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I think we all do feeding forward in quite a lot of instances. It's just we don't call it feeding forward, if you like. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I also see another question from Ludmila. So she's asking what to do if students are not ready to hear your feedback on their
Mm,
complete task, activity, etc. So they are
mm-hmm.
not to hear your feedback on their completed task or activity or something. So I guess it would be some negative feedback that you have to give them.
It can be negative feedback, but it can also be some positive feedback. There are just instances when the students are not prepared to hear you, and that normally stems from the circumstances and the environment. Um, and here's a question to Ludmila: Did I get it? Did I get it right? Did I get what you wanted to know? So occasionally, or sometimes, there are cases when you want to give feedback on the student's performance, but they are too tired they've had a long day at schools, at work, and their brain just isn't working and isn't prepared for some substantial information. So in this case, we kind of wrap it all up and do something which is more, you know, practical for them at this moment, such as, you know, fluency development, because this is when they can chat about something they're more interested in rather than doing some correction. Another example would be, you know, our emotions and our internal feelings, because if we hear some bad news in the process of learning, like even during the lesson, or generally if we come to the lesson feeling down because we've had problems at work and something like that, we are not prepared. And this stems from the concept of affective filter, which but by Stephen Krashen. And according to this, if we are not comfortable, if we're not relaxed enough, we are not prepared to take in the information, regardless of what kind of information it is. We're just distracted. And we can see examples in our everyday life, like if we are stressed, we have problems at work, and we start driving, we can be less focused, and you know, we can, you know, create some situations which are rather undesirable, basically like thinking about something in our head, not watching the traffic lights or that kind of stuff. Same in our lessons. And the best idea in that case is to, you know, put it all off until a better moment when the students are prepared to take the feedback in, because if we do it now, we'll have to do it later again anyway, because they won't have taken it all in at this moment. So I hope I got that right, and that was the question.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Ludmila, if you have extra questions or something that you would like to have clarity on, please write another message so we can address it.
Yeah.
Also, you mentioned, Kate, yes, that sometimes, like especially like when we deal with adults, right? Like when they come work or maybe something happened in their like family life or personal private life, right? So we see that the person is not ready like for any kind of information, even though it's going to be a positive feedback. So we need to find this moment of when we feel that they are ready and prepared to hear this. So it actually brings us to a question: how often we should give it? Like you said, we should be put until like another stage, for example, if it's a lesson or meeting session, or should we put it off until like another meeting?
Here, all will depend. So that's a very good question. And we often have this conversation on CELTA courses, like how often should I give feedback? And well, definitely feedback on every single task the students do. And here, what I mean is, if we're doing a warm-up activity, we expect our students to report on what they've just discussed, but we won't be doing any error correction at this stage, probably. I will, however, make notes of what the students are saying, and we'll do error correction later. So that's that. However, there are moments when the students are, you know, seeking feedback, and there are moments when they don't want any feedback. And we can definitely observe that in our students, such as, you know, in face-to-face and in online classes, you can see that if the student is looking at you directly, like you can see that they're looking at the screen, or in the classroom, they're looking at you. They're obviously seeking some information from you. And you can sometimes notice that you're there next to the board explaining something, and they're looking at you very carefully. So they are also seeking feedback, because they're, you know, that's just their chance to notice the body language, the facial expressions, that kind of thing. If that's the moment, then if we notice that, then we should try and, you know, exploit it as much as possible. So that's our chance to give as much information as we can. However, there are cases when the students are, you know, looking away and trying not to establish eye contact, which means they're not prepared to speak. I think here we should act as active observers and try and spot those moments when the students show openness to feedback, and when they refrain from establishing the contact with you and seeking feedback. There is no like ideal number, unfortunately, so I cannot say that there should be like 70% time feedback or something like that. um, and which brings me to the points I normally make on the CELTA courses, normally at the end of the course, of course, because it ruins everything. What I say is that we all become very effective teachers when we've learned all the techniques, the concept checking, the stages, the instructions, that kind of thing. But we become really effective teachers when we are, first of all, interested in our students, and that includes their emotions, their performance, their needs. And when we're interested, we observe what they are doing, how they react, what they need. And, that's the key. That's when we know, okay, I should give feedback here. And a lot of it, is not something we can plan or something we do consciously. They're like life skills, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, like you said, like it's so important to show this interest in your students, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
maybe then I can add from myself that also interest in what you are teaching. This is also what very important, regardless of the subject or discipline. Like students, like learners, they always can see if you have take interest yourself in what you are teaching, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it also helps when, we remember little things about our students, such as, we remember they have kids, they went to Egypt for holiday, and that kind of thing. Because it's all, we're being personal. And the other thing I really like to say is, there's no word which is more precious than our own name. And in a very straightforward sense, and all the abstract senses you can think of, we are all interested in hearing things about us. Yeah.
Yeah. I profoundly agree that like small things that we remember our students, this is what helps set up to establish this rapport with them. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just like a small thing for us. For them, it's like it's so much. They're like, wow, like you have so many students, but like I'm special for you because you
Sure.
remember these like small things about me. And another
Sure.
thing, yes, absolutely agree about name. Yes, it's so important to remember our students' names.
Yeah.
Yeah, from like my own experience, I can say like those people who call me by the name, it's like, like it kind of like ignites some kind of light inside me,
Yeah.
or, it changes my
Yeah.
mood absolutely, instead of just addressing you or like not
Yeah.
addressing it by any name.
Yeah.
So yeah.
An interesting question here, by the way, if I may, I'll ask you a question.
Oh, yeah.
How do you feel, or what do you prefer, or do you mind if people call you? Because I know that you introduce yourself as Lana, but do you mind if people call you Svetlana or Sveta, or whatever other name they can come up with? How do you feel
Yeah.
about that?
Thank you so much for this question. This is
Mm,
really something that, yes, I was talking to my mom about this today, that
mm,
for me, like people, like I also worked abroad, and like people, so Lana is just like a period. It's not really a Slavic name, right? And like
no.
it's a cool name, and like of course, like here, like my family, my friends, they call me Sveta, right?
Okay.
But when it's abroad, like students would always mispronounce it. So like
Mm-hmm,
I just
mm-hmm.
like Lana, it's a part of my name, so it would be like much easier for students. And also for me, like some people, like I know that some people get offended if like if they are called, like for example in my case, if I would be called Sveta instead of Svetlana. So for
Mm,
me,
mm.
it doesn't matter at all. You can call me anything, and
Okay. Can I call you
uh,
Lion King? Sorry, that's the joke
and
I normally make with the students.
there have been so many people from different countries who have mispronounced it in so many different ways that reminded
Oh yeah,
others.
yeah.
And my friend, like I'm not going to mention this, but like he just found like a rhyme word which sounds like with Lana, there's another thing,
Mm,
thing that like it's just like so like I never get offended with these things. So um,
interesting.
and sometimes also, oh, yeah, what I was thinking, like, for example, if someone asks me, like, what's your name? I meet someone for the first time, and I'd say Svetlana, for example, and then they just say, called me Sveta, right? So,
Hmm.
like, it offend me at all, and I feel absolutely okay with it. And also, like, I realize that it's something important to understand that some people just don't have enough education about it. Like, they don't have any, like, any wrong intentions, right? They just, like, they
True.
don't realize maybe like if this person introduced themselves in this way, you should call them in this way. But they change it in a more, like cutesy form sometimes. Like so,
Yeah,
yeah. For me, it's I can say that absolutely okay. I have like no, I
cool,
never get offended with anything. So yeah, for me, it's
cool.
absolutely
Yeah,
yeah.
and this is interesting because this is a very, very important point with our students. So when I started teaching abroad, I had to learn not to mispronounce their names, particularly, in Arabic and in Thai, where there are sounds which I cannot produce correctly. So that requires quite a lot of attention. And the other thing is that it's a technique which comes from psychology. It helps establish a better rapport if we pay particular attention to the student's name and we remember what their name is and how to pronounce it, how they like it. So that's also part of feedback, our feedback to the students, which says, you are important.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah, thank you for that question. I love that question a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Good.
so about let's talk a little bit about professional feedback, right? Like also maybe
Mm.
like also that I was thinking about today that there's a video that I watched and it spoke about this hamburger approach and also the types of feedback that are given that is given in like in different countries. For example, I've heard that in Asia, and I've also observed it myself that in Asia people are very nice, very polite, and they cannot be straightforward, right? They cannot
Mm-hmm.
criticize you, they cannot tell you like some negative things. So, for example, if let's say an employee makes a mistake and then this
Mm-hmm.
person is pulled into their boss's office, so the boss is going to talk only about positive things. There will be
Mm.
no negativity. The boss will not mention about the mistake that you made, but you will have to guess yourself that something is wrong. In
Mm-hmm.
the United States, it's like a healthcare approach. They start with, like asking about your family, talking how things are going, like asking about you, and they smoothly like start talking about positive things, negative things, and they wrap up with positive things again. In Europe, also, I've observed it so many times in different European countries. It's only the criticism usually, right? It's not like like in many cases, it's not very well structured. It's like if you make a mistake, and especially in the companies that have stayed from the old Soviet Union times, right? Some
Mm-hmm.
countries or ones. So there's only, like there's only criticism, right? They don't know about like such sophisticated ways of feedback. So so my question is like, what do you think about these approaches? Do you think like, for example, a approach would work in Ukraine or like in Europe or for example, European approach would it work like in different countries or what would be the golden mean of these types of approaches?
Hmm. That's a very interesting question. And I guess the answer here would stem from the culture and the implications it has for feedback. Because I think that all will depend on the environment, on the circumstances, and on how we teach, the students, the customers, our peers, what we are going to do. And definitely, especially with the development of management and all the IT technologies, there are so many types of so many types of feedback we can do. Like corporate feedback and the peer feedback. We also give feedback to our managers. We sometimes manage upwards, that is to say, manage the managers. There's also feedback, well, 360-degree feedback, which is, you're getting feedback from your line manager, from the customers, from the peers, and there's like direct feedback. So, and it's really nice that there are all those things, because everything has to be done for a reason. And when I say for a reason, it means that it has to be tailored to why we are doing it. I guess, well, there's this question of, what happens when a European citizen goes to Asia? What kind of feedback should they do, and what kind of feedback should they get? And my personal belief here would be that, before we do something, we have to negotiate how we do that. So it's best to research how it's done in our culture. And, we know a lot of things, but if we do the research, if we read about that, we become more aware of the things we do unintentionally, and research the way feedback is done in the organization or the country where we're going to do that. And then, meet halfway, that is to say, to first negotiate that with our counterpart or the interlocutor. Can a different kind of feedback from what I'm used to work for me? Yes, definitely, if I know what's being done and why it's being done. So I guess that would be the answer. But then again, I'm very open to all sorts of ideas and things, and maybe that's not right, I don't know, but I always try and explore and experiment with whatever is available.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah,
question,
sorry.
If I may, then, because I know that you've worked in Asia, right, for quite a long time. So I'd be interested to find out what you think about this question yourself, because obviously feedback is very different there.
Yes, it's very different. I can say when I came, so before that, I had worked in Turkey. And when I worked in Turkey, I would say that Turkey is very similar to Ukraine, to European countries. So like when I worked there, I didn't have to like adapt or adjust in a very dramatic ways. So when I came to Asia, of course, it was very, very different in the beginning. And, like in Europe, we are very straightforward about things. Asian culture is very different. And of course, like as a teacher, like I had to give feedback to my students. And like I was so like I would give feedback in a straightforward manner, being so direct. But then I was told about this, but that like that I had to be more careful with my feedback, because like it's a different culture. People take it in a different way. So like we spoke about it in detail, right? So we came up with this strategy how professional feedback should be given, and not just professional, but adjusted to a certain culture, right? So of course, like I can say that yes, I had to be more careful with the way I had to give feedback compared to my experience working in Ukraine than in Turkey. And yes, so like it's interesting, like what you mentioned, actually, I never realized this myself before, that you can and you should negotiate it with someone who you are going to give feedback to. Something interesting. I never thought about this myself before. So I actually thought that if you have to give feedback to someone, you just give feedback, you understand the structure, but you don't have to explain everything how you do, like to your employees or to your students, right? But it's interesting what you mentioned, that yes, it's also like, especially if we work with adults, like they are also very mindful people, they understand these things. So like it's important to have this like communication breakdown or some kind of misunderstanding, or someone got offended and will not come back again to your lessons. So I believe that it's very, very important to negotiate, as you said. Yeah, this is the new idea for me, and it's very interesting. I really love it so much. In this case, like it just like will create such a smooth, like way for giving feedback. That's very
Mm-hmm.
interesting. I think. So yeah.
Okay, that's nice. That's nice. Very
But
interesting. Always very interesting to hear about various people's experience. So thank you for sharing that.
yes, yes, thank you for asking. So yeah, with every culture, yes, it's probably like you said, it's important like before going to a certain culture and country, so
Yeah.
learn about this culture, right? Like what to do, what's not to do. Maybe these things can be okay like in other cultures, right? But
Mm-hmm.
like every culture is unique and different. And in order not to hurt someone's feelings, in order not to get someone offended, like it's so important to learn how like you can do things to actually help them, but at the same time motivate them, right? If we are
Yeah.
talking about learners,
Yeah. No,
that was
definitely.
so. Yes, I I learned it. I learned it in a hard way, if you ask me. Yeah.
Well, I guess all the best lessons we learn are learned in a hard way. I mean, they're the most memorable. Not that I'm advocating that, but it's just the way it happens. We memorize that really well. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I have just going back to Ludmila's question when she was asking about just a second when students are not ready to hear your feedback on their completed task. Okay, let's say like for example, you can see a piece of writing or whatever it is, like whatever work you have to assess or give feedback on. And you see that all the aspects, all the criteria, like there's nothing positive to say, right?
Okay.
So is it possible, like, so like about like is it possible to find some positive things, like even though everything looks actually negative, that you can see mistakes in the like form, language, the content, like whatever it is, like just every criteria that you have to assess, like everything is wrong. So is it possible to still find some positive things about such kind of works?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's always something positive about any kind of work that's done. We just have to, think outside the box or think beyond the criteria, because the positive things can include, even spelling. We could find some complicated words which are spelled correctly and could praise the students for that. We could praise the students for ideas. Maybe they are innovative. Maybe they correspond to the task. Maybe they don't correspond to the task. Um, However, this way they are more engaging for the reader, more interesting, simply, or more creative. We would definitely tell the student that we need to stay within the criteria, though, but we could praise them for this creative thinking. Um, we could, I mean, we could look for the other things, such as, some unusual paragraphing, which is there for a reason always, and it simply shows that the students have a different kind of thinking. So, like, they join the ideas using different logic, and we could ask them to explore, to explain why they did it that way. And maybe there is something there which we didn't notice. Um, well, the other thing is to ask the students about their piece of work, because particularly I've had students who were preparing for, FC, CAE, and particularly CAE, and there were lessons which were absolutely fantastic, like almost flawless speaking. But there were other lessons where, there were problems with subject-verb agreement, other little things which are not supposed to be there at CAE level. So at a certain point, I stop and ask, today, you're not performing the way you normally do. So are you ready to continue with the work today, or would you like to postpone, or is something happening? And normally the answer is yes, something is happening, because it doesn't happen for no reason. If the case you are describing is a regular thing, then it probably means that the student shouldn't be there in that level, because if the mistakes are recurring, and this is the task which is designed for this level, then the student is obviously not good enough for this level, so not strong enough, and should do some revision of the levels below that one. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, thank you
Is,
so
is,
much.
is
Thank
that
you.
is that what you
Okay.
meant? Is that what you were asking about?
Yes, yes, just like I will
Mhm.
add also, I will say some the people who are watching us, and then I will ask you extra questions on this.
Sure.
Just
Okay.
to be 6 o'clock, so we are going to wrap up soon. So
Mhm.
like if you have any questions, please text us. And in the meantime, also I will ask one more question about being objective, right? So
Oh.
people when we think about feedback, we also like it was also actually one of the answers someone answered that like when we posted this event about this topic that we will be
Yeah.
discussing, feedback should be also impersonal and objective. So I believe personally that like it's so important, especially as educators, right? To never show favoritism, right? Like I'm going to like be like to give more positive feedback just to someone who I like on a personal level, and someone
Mhm.
who I don't like it's going to be more negative, right? So like as professional educators, I believe that this is so important, like to always maintain and like have these boundaries, right?
Mhm.
Being always. Yeah, maybe you can comment on this better than me.
That's a very difficult question, to be honest with you, because I think I would say it's very close to impossible to make sure that feedback is objective, unless it's, a simple gap fill with one answer that is possible or a multiple choice test. Because whenever we have, descriptive criteria, it's up to us, how we interpret that. And Cambridge have done a lot of work to make sure that the descriptors for, the speaking exams and also for CELTA and Delta include the information needed for the trainers and for the assessors, um, so that we can make our feedback as fair as possible. And also the other thing is, on CELTA and Delta, for example, we have external assessment, which is there to ensure that our feedback is fair. And I'm not using the word objective here, because whatever happens, we always interpret everything in life through the prism of our own experience, our own perceptions, ideas, beliefs, and likes and dislikes. So for us, it's important to go back to the criteria, to always look at them. And this is what happens when we have the grades meeting with the assessors, or when we are not sure, how to grade the lesson. We have this, list of the criteria and the descriptions of the grades, and we think, is this person, planning independently or almost independently? How much uh, independence is there to make it independent or almost fully independent? And occasional slips. What is occasional? And we spend a lot of time discussing with our co-trainers, colleagues, and the people who are who help us develop actually as teachers and as trainers. So discussing the things such as, how would you grade this? How would you grade that? How can we make uh, sure that this is more or less fair? So no, I wouldn't say that it's possible to make sure something is, black or white, or well,
Mm-hmm.
from this black and white. Things are always a little subjective. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, but the main point about it, I guess, like to not show any favoritism, right? That
Well, true,
objective,
absolutely.
agree with you, like we are not machines, like of course, like we are humans and we are not perfect. We have our flaws and imperfections, but at least like to strive for this, right? And to understand the professional, right? The boundaries
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah,
profession.
yeah. No, that's why we always go back to the criteria, and that's why we always, want to check our ideas with someone to make sure that this is right and this is fair. So yeah, yeah, no, we should always aspire that.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay, thank you so much. I can see two
Yeah.
more questions. Just a second. Evgenia is asking, I enjoy the feedback most of all in a lesson. What do you think are the most practical strategies or techniques for exit ticket or feedback? Okay, so what are the most practical strategies for feedback? I think just like we discussed, like to me, it sounds like a very broad question, right? Like I think we just discussed about the importance, about types of feedback, how often we should give it, right? About professional feedback, about feedback and feed forward. So, Evgenia, maybe if you can be more specific about it so we can address it like more specifically. Like, did I get it right, Kate? Maybe you have your own opinion about it.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, I, I, I guess I'd say the same as what you just said.
Oh,
Um,
okay, Evgenia is also okay.
yeah, go on, go on.
Is it saying now it is fashionable to say that a student needs to give feedback to a teacher for the lessons? That's interesting. I like it actually. But yes, we can negotiate it. Like if I'm a student, like okay, I can ask my teacher what I expect, what kind of feedback, and how they will be given this to me. And also if I'm a teacher, like what I expect my students, what kind of feedback they will be giving to me. So it's fashionable for a teacher sorry, a student needs to give feedback to a teacher for the lesson. You mentioned about feedback about activities they've completed, but what about whole syllabus topics units? Do you think it's appropriate, and how would you get it in the lessons?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the question is like a student gives feedback to a teacher, and also they can give feedback on syllabus, on topics, and on units. So maybe like about their methods, how they are presenting the information about the materials they are using, and everything about this. Interesting.
That's a very interesting question. Um, I think that, in the modern world, learning is not simply learning and teaching is not simply teaching, it's also a business. So we have to make sure that our customers, that is our students, are happy. And we definitely want to get their feedback and to know what they think of our lessons and how happy they are. In order to make sure it's relevant and the word we use, objective, we need to make sure we craft the questions in an appropriate way, and also, that we ask the questions about the right things. Uh, well, I mean, if we ask the student whether they liked the lesson or whether they're happy with the syllabus, they might say, no, I'm not very happy. I'm not interested in talking about architecture. Fine, okay, but what if this is a C1, C2 level student who needs to be able to talk about the things they don't know anything about, they're not interested in, they cannot relate to. So, worst case scenario, they simply have to learn to say, I don't care about this. Can we talk about something else? But the other thing is, in order to master this level, to be at this level, we need to be able to speak about this particular topic. So this kind of boils down to the question of needs and wants. And when I do needs analysis with my students these days, I ask them, so at the beginning of the course, I say, how happy are you to do reading in class, listening in class, and writing in class, and that kind of stuff. But the second question is, do you actually need any reading in English in your everyday life, or for the purpose you are learning English for? Uh, and if the answer is I'm not happy to do any reading in class, but the answer to my second question is, well, I'm going to do Cambridge to take a Cambridge exam, then obviously, I don't care what you like or don't like. You have to do reading because it's part of the exam. I mean, I'm putting it in a blunt way, but obviously we will have to do some reading. But this just means that we have to negotiate, or again, we have to explain to the student why we are doing things. And I'm talking, about feeding forward because, this is how we can prevent negative feedback. So like if at the end of the course or halfway through the course, we ask our students, how happy are you with the syllabus? And they say, oh, I don't think it's very good, it's boring. Then the question is, first of all, why have you been quiet all this time? Second, why did we plan it this way? And then third, is there anything we need to do about it, or do we simply have to negotiate it? Yes, I think it's very important for the teachers to get feedback from the students, but it's important to ask the right questions. It shouldn't be about, whether the students like that or not and happy with that or not. It should be about what they need at the end, and then it's our job to plan the course or the lesson that way.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your answer. Yeah, I think like I took it like very literally. Like the first thing that came to my mind, like that the students would come up to me and say, for example, you did this right, you did this wrong. Like, of course not. I mean, like, not all the students would be like willing to do this. But the way you put it, like the way you elaborated, yes, it's important, like you said, to ask the right questions. So, for example, if we are talking about the syllabus, right, like the materials, so we can ask the question, are you happy with it? Or, as you said, to address their needs and interests, right? Maybe it's not something they like, but it's something that they will need, right? Like at the end, eventually, because they're for like an IELTS exam or something like. And I remember also, like in one of the schools that I used to work for, they used to have this kind of what's it called, like a survey with certain questions, right? Like not all of the students, for example, can talk in detail about like the method, right? So not every student come up to you and say like, I'm like not happy method because like I don't like these things and these things. So like, because like they don't have like this knowledge, right? Like teenagers or even adults or kids, right? So like it's important, like you said, to ask their own not the right questions. So for example, like, do you like the materials, or are you happy with the teacher? Maybe also you can ask about like, does the teacher explain everything clearly, right? Do you like about ICQs also, right? Like, does the teacher like explain the instructions clearly, right? Like, so to ask the right questions, and also very specifically, then they would be able to say yes or no, right? But like in most cases, of course, not be able to come up to you and give you, like a professional feedback, what's right or wrong.
While you were starting to answer that question, I also read Evgenia's follow-up question, where she mentions exit tickets such as open discussions, anonymous polls. And two things I want to say here. First of all, if we have something like exit tickets, that is to say we discuss what happened during the lesson, what the students have learned, what they're happy with or not happy with, it kind of makes them more aware of that, what they have learned today. And first of all, that motivates them a lot because they feel that they've learned something. And secondly, it sometimes opens their eyes to what they have actually learned, because they may be practicing some language during the lesson without being aware of the fact that they're practicing this language. So that's the first point. So I totally agree that that's a good strategy. And secondly, I'm not a big fan of anonymous feedback, because when the feedback is anonymous, again, a couple of things. First of all, sometimes the people describe the situation, but then you don't know what they are referring to, because they haven't given us enough information. Secondly, it's very easy to say something that you're not responsible for. So when the feedback is not anonymous, the people say the things which they believe in, and they are ready to stand up for. But also there has to be the culture of feedback, so that the people are not afraid to say that I didn't like that and I want more of this and that. And it's our job then to encourage this open and fair feedback, and to encourage them to give us negative feedback, and also probably to teach them how to give this negative feedback in a positive way, well, in a non-threatening way, let's put it this way, so that we don't get offended by that.
And some
no, it's just a very nice question. I liked it, so I'm feeling happy.
Yeah, that's an interesting one actually. Yeah, and I like what you said that like about being anonymous. But, like yes, sometimes it's actually hidden from teachers when they get some feedback from
Hmm.
students, and because like some like managers they believe that maybe in that case like teacher will be like overly reacting to this student, or like the reaction might change.
Hmm.
Uh, so so yeah, it makes sense. Yeah.
Again, it's a culture. If we want to ask the students for feedback, we have to be prepared to receive this feedback. And we also have to teach the students to give feedback. So it's kind of, a two-way street where we all have to do some work. And it's very important because it's one of the life skills and one of the communication skills. And if we learn to do that in a classroom, then we can be more effective in life.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
To be open-minded also. It's so important to be open
Absolutely.
without any kind
Absolutely.
of, so yeah.
Yeah.
One more comment, and I guess it's the last comment, and we will be wrapping up. Okay.
Okay.
Momo, my student former student from Myanmar,
Mm.
she's saying, as a student, I think that the teacher's intonation and mood are very important to me when a teacher is giving a feedback. So mood and intonation are very important. In my opinion, students would love to accept it nicely, even though the feedback is not good. Just something we've been speaking about. Students
Absolutely.
are curious to know about their improvement or what to practice more.
Hmm.
Definitely, students, teachers, as we said, like if you love your job, if it's important what you are doing, like in any job, like feedback is really, really crucial and important, not just for teachers or students. Because of feedback, students improve a lot. Yes, everyone improves a lot from
True.
feedback. As we, like if I don't get any feedback, how do I know that I'm getting better? How do I know that I'm doing?
Absolutely. A very good point. Yes.
Yes, yes, I really like this comment. I really appreciate when a teacher gives specific feedback. Yes, it should be specific. I agree, like not some generic things that you just say to everyone. Thank you in advance. I totally agree with you. Negotiation is quite essential between teachers and students. Yes, it's something that, yes, you brought up this interesting thing about like negotiating a feedback. So yes, this is something I will start applying in my practice because yeah, I've never applied it before, and yeah, that's interesting. So if you
Nice.
have
Nice.
it, please
No,
share
it
also.
sounds like you taught your students really well because getting that kind of comment from a student shows a really nice level of awareness from them. So well done to you and your students.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yes, I really like what Momo said about that. Like it should be specific. Yes, I absolutely agree that it should
Yeah.
be specific, not just generic things that you say like to everyone, like, oh, like well done, well done, well done to all of your students, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I guess we will have to finish at this point. So thank you, Kate, so much for your professional explanation of feedback, for sharing your knowledge, and I really appreciate you a lot. And I learned a lot. Like each time when I watch your webinars or just when I talk to you, I learned so much from you. And I really like today. I've learned like this thing. Like I've learned a lot of things, but this thing like about negotiation, it has stuck with me. So yeah, that was
That's
powerful. So
great. That's
much for
amazing. Well, it kind of made me think about a lot of different points as well. And I was like making little notes because, like, tomorrow I'm observing a Celta lesson, and there are points which I want to mention during my feedback tomorrow. So, yeah, thank you for inviting me to speak to you, and thank you for choosing this topic, one of my favorite topics. Yeah. If that's okay, a couple of things I'd like to say. Thanks everyone for listening, for participating. It's been lovely to have your questions and to answer them. And I'm always looking for inspiration. So if there is a topic you're interested in, can you please send it either to, as part of private messages, or maybe a comment in this event. This will show us which direction to go in and what to talk about, and also maybe plan a couple of webinars which we could do dedicated to the topics you are interested in. So we're looking for your feedback. Please tell us what you want, tell us what you think, and definitely what you'd like more of in those discussions, because I'm sure this is not last discussions with Lana has. She'll be inviting lots of lovely teachers again and again. And for me personally, I'd love to know what you are looking for, because that also inspires me to look for new things. So thank you, Svetlana, and thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you, Kate, so much for your answers. It was so lovely to have you, and thank you everyone who has joined us, who has participating. And I see some nice comments. People are saying like that's been a wonderful stream. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to listen and to be a part of the conversation. So thank you, Kate. Thank you for for being such an inspiration. You are an inspiration for so many people, and thank you everyone who joined us. So yes, please
Thank
do
you.
like you can send it to me or Kate in direct message if you have some like other things you'd like to discuss, or maybe like in the future also, or if you have any feedback for us that's also maybe not nice. Like we are absolutely open-minded to listen to all kinds of feedback. So
That's how we learn, after all. We learn from
yeah,
feedback.
exactly, and how we develop. So okay, so happy Sunday to everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and also a wonderful week ahead. And stay tuned for our future live chats.
Absolutely, absolutely. Happy Sunday. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. Just this little time, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye bye.